Hey everyone, it's Marianne from the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees. I want to share with you a video that a gentleman from UFT TRS, to Teachers Retirement System, had put out in response to, I guess there's a lot of information, which he calls misinformation on the internet. I know that E.J. McMahon from the Empire Center and also Manhattan Institute, which is a right think tank, had also put out information. And then remember, the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees has retirees from every single agency in the city of New York, including pension. And so we ran by them a bill that is before the New York State Legislature, introduced by the governor, that would allow for like deferred pension contributions from the city of New York to the state pension system to be deferred. Kind of like we describe it as refinancing your mortgage, because the unions still owe a little bit from their 2013 deal. But what this would do is reduce what the city has to contribute into the pension system from last year until 2033, when they would have to start to pay it back. And of course, that bumps up what they would have to pay. So they would owe a lot more. It jumps up from $11 billion to $18 billion. And so they have these escalated payments from 2033 to 2044. Of course, there would be no Governor Hochul and no Michael Mulgrew and no Henry Garrido. And what you need to know about this is that this bill was put in at the support of the two union leaders that are on the pension boards, which would be UFT, Michael Mulgrew for TRS and BERS, and Henry Garrido of DC37. This is what we're told, that this bill had the support of these two leaders. Now, all five pension systems, because there's also police and fire pension systems, were approached to do this deal, and they were like, no way, Jose. And a lot of that has to do with why they were going to do it, and also that the unions are still burnt by these backdoor deals made by Henry Garrido and Michael Mulgrew, going back to the 2014 and the 2018 deal that pretty much destroyed PICA and the Health Stabilization Fund and financed two union contracts on the backs of everybody else. So there's a lot of mistrust here. And while Mr. Tom here, I'm going to play you his video, and then I'm going to comment on it right after. His statement is that there's misinformation, but he's not telling you why they did it still, which is still the outlying answer. So listen to this.
Misinformation out there on social media about our pensions. I just feel it is necessary to address some of the concerns. First, no one will be borrowing money from the TRS or taking money out of our pension system. I've met people on the street, and they're telling me that, is it true that the city is going to borrow money from the teachers' retirement system? Absolutely not. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. I don't know where people are getting this information.
Now, I believe that Tom is twisting the language, because I haven't seen the word borrowing. At least that hasn't come from us. However, it is reducing the city's obligation to pay, and yet no one's explaining why they're doing this. And of course, the benefit would be to the city. So I'm not saying borrow. I'm saying that this deal benefits the city by allowing them not to pay their contributions into the pension system from last year through 2033, and then these escalated, bumped up pension payments going from 2033 to 2044. They could it's understandable that they would describe that as a savings to the city, but what are they saving it for? What's the purpose of not doing that? That's really still the question.
New York City has a legal obligation to contribute the actuarial required contribution, we call them the ARCs, in a timely manner into our pension fund, and that will not change. My message to you is, you can all be reassured that Victoria, Christina, and I, your elected trustees to serve on Teachers Retirement System's board, will always act in the best interests of all of our TRS members. Our obligation is to fulfill our duties of...
Well, I really have to say this. There is no trust amongst anyone anymore, basically coming from UFT or DC37, because they cannot be trusted to do the best thing in the interest of the retirees after what they put us through for the last 4 years in negotiating away our health benefits, forcing us into managed care, passing co-pays and increased deductibles on us in the forms of a backdoor premium. As they're hiding what they're saying to you when they keep saying your healthcare plan is premium free. Well, it's premium free, but all the copays and the deductibles are backdoor premiums. They're not telling you that. And this is a very heavily edited video. It's very obvious of that. And he's trying to tell you he has a fiduciary responsibility, which he does. But what he's not saying to you is by reducing the city's payments into the pension plan, the city's pension funds are right now 85% funded. Right now, you can look at today, for example, which is March 10th, go to the finance websites, go to the stock markets, and you will see that the stock markets are down. NASDAQ and the Dow took a dump today. And this could potentially happen. And the president of the United States is hesitant to say that we're pushing into a recession. And if you look at that, the last several times we've had a recession, they typically last around 10 months. Now, whatever the investments are that are in the pension system, if they take a large enough hit, will impact this. And while the pension fund is required to be maintained, as he states, by these actuarial payments by the municipalities and you, of course, if for some reason that there is a deficit, guess where that's coming from? By the time those payments are due, we'll all be long gone. Well, at least they will. I'm sure some of us will still be around here, but they won't be in office anymore. And that money's going to have to come from somewhere, whether it's taxpayers, increased member contributions, it's your raises. If you're active workers, you're going to be taking more from the unborn. Something is going to have to give because the state constitution, Article 5, Section 7, requires that those pensions be paid and not diminished. So let's finish listening.
Trust solely in the interest of our plan's participants without regard to any outside influences, and we make decisions based on what is best for our retirees, our beneficiaries, our future retirees. So categorically, no one will be borrowing money from TRS or taking money out of the pension system to do other things.
And that's not really what we said again. Again, no trust. And he's still not saying why they did this bill to allow the city this grace period in not having to pay into the pension funds from 24 until 2033. And that it would be a quote unquote savings of about $11 billion. And when they have to start to pay it back, it would be $18 billion. Right now, we are having a financial struggle in the city. At least that's what they're telling us. While we do know that the city does have money, your pension monies have to be funded. I think the only question I still have here for Tom is then if this is okay and you want to give people the assurance, why did you agree to it? What is the city using that savings to? Because you wouldn't have had to do a bill for no reason. Then the city could have continued to pay into the pension fund. Today it is 85% funded. And going forward, if there was an overage, well, then that would have made the pension funds more secure, wouldn't it? And when you say that the way that you want us to trust you, that is not going to fall well with retirees, especially because these were the same excuses that you gave to everybody, at least the union leadership, when they said that they were going to be doing these 2014 and 2018 deals, the 2016 copay deal, the 2019 Medicare Advantage, and all of the things that you had done to the healthcare plan and passing these costs, increased copays and deductibles, and these 14 and 18 MLC agreements was to save money. The savings wasn't to benefit a retiree. The savings was to benefit the city and the active union doing it, UFT and DC37, to finance their contracts. And when those contracts imploded and the stabilization fund went bankrupt, you left the entire system at risk. Why would you do that? Healthcare should be funded like pensions are. You should be paying into the retiree health benefit trust, and you should be making sure that your pensions have a sound foundation going forward. So, Tom, I'm sorry, unless you come back and put out another video and explaining exactly why this bill was done and why the city needs this savings and why you're not okay with making sure that pensions are 100% funded rather than just 85% funded, I'd want to ask you why. And both you and Henry Garrido should have to explain that, since he is also on the NYSERS pension board. Have a great day, everybody. This still doesn't answer any questions, and he's just making word salad like usual, coming from union leadership that don't want to answer the full question. So now I want to share with you the video from Justin Brannon is a conversation with the comptroller, Brad Lander, on this very issue that we've been talking about. So.
Okay, last thing for me. The mayor has been lobbying in Albany to allow the city to refinance its unfunded accrual liability for 3 of the pension systems. This action would save the city in the short run, but it would add additional costs in the long run. Council sees the merit of this proposal, but we don't think it's appropriate to move forward unilaterally without the support of the employees who fund and rely on the pension systems. What is the Comptroller's Office opinion of this proposal?
Yeah, so we share those concerns, and I'll just make them a little more specific. So yeah, so we're currently on path, but currently the pensions are about, on average, about 85% funded across the 5 funds, which is great. That's not 85% funded for next year. That's 85% funded for the totality of our obligations as they stretch out, for decades. That is, and many folks say, great, you're in good shape, but the city nonetheless has a good plan to get to 100% funding that was adopted 20 years ago, and put us on a path to reach 100% funding by the year 2032. This is a plan or a proposal that the mayor made and that it's included in the governor's executive budget to stretch that out another to 2044. And of course, if you stretch the payments out longer, you can reduce what you would do between now and 2032. But as you say, it would cost the city, meaningfully additionally in the out years. So I think we have those numbers. You would see a estimated $4.2 billion cumulative savings during the period of the financial plan, with a total decline in city contributions, or that shows up essentially as savings, of $8.6 billion over the years 2025 to 2032. But then in order to make it up, you'd see an increase in contributions above what's currently projected of $13.8 billion in FY 2033 to 2044. Now that all nets out to zero, but still it means substantially more dollars in the out years than you see savings in the next decade. And just to do that kind of because does not make any sense. Now, if there is a serious emergency created as a result of what happens in Washington, and we see more specifically what that looks like, you might say, well, maybe we should take another look at that in the context of looking at long-term retiree health benefit obligations as it becomes more clear what will happen with the resolution of the lawsuit and retiree health benefits. You might say, let's bring that in and calibrate our long-term obligations more thoughtfully. So could there be potentially a responsible way of looking at this as part of a real fiscally responsible long-term plan? It's possible, and we would be glad to consider it. But the current proposal simply to take some money now and bill it to the future, we do not support.
Got it.
So isn't that interesting? I think that's is exactly what we've been saying. And yet the United Federation of Teachers, Tom Brown, wants to start disputing what we've been saying, or say that we're fear mongering, and or that the information that we have put out there is from a right-wing think tank because it's the Manhattan Institute. Here is the controller, one of the most progressive controllers that you could actually, employees, candidates, politicians that you could possibly talk about in the city of New York, talking about not using money this way. Okay, so I honestly think that he made an intimation that there was a potential connection to retiree healthcare. Wink, wink. I do believe that maybe Michael Mulgrew and Henry Garrido tried to leverage pensions for all employees and retirees to pay back the city what they believe that the city is owed, or the city believes it's owed like $3.4 billion today. And because of this, them not being able to meet the agreed upon backdoor deals that these two unions made by leveraging all the unions in the city of New York to fund their individual contract raises, that they came up with this scheme, potentially, since no one is speaking about it, this is just a hypothesis. Why would they have done this if not to try to pay back the city what the city believes it's owed? And also, if the city believes its liability today is $3.4 billion due to the failed 14 and 18 agreements, going forward, could it potentially be 11 billion? Yeah, because if you add 600 million for the next several years, it pretty much brings you up close to that figure. So I think that they realize that they just got caught, and I wouldn't be shocked if they eventually have to end up walking this whole thing back because they got caught one more time. Look, to the unions paying attention to this, you almost had two of the largest unions in the city and the Municipal Labor Committee try to again insert themselves in a mandatory subject of bargaining. I think it's time to censure the UFT and DC37, and I might even consider you might want to ask them to leave the MLC. At this point, they're not acting like good brothers and sisters. They're not even acting as good partners in labor. And for them still at this point to not speak out about why they did this, not even the controller knows why they did this. That's enough for me. Have a great night, everybody.
Don't speak what you don't understand. The truth is not in your command. Don't shout about what you think is fake. The decision isn't yours to make. Don't lie about the way things are. Tall tales will take you very far. Don't scoff when they say it's the end. In this life we know you can't pretend. The days pass by, baby set in stone. But it's not too late now for you to change your tone.